Thank you so much for participating in this training, Mark. So, just in case there's a fire, there won't be, I'm sure, but just we go outside for the fire evacuation if there was any potential fire. And if you need to stop at any time, just let me know. If you're getting a bit, if your brain's a bit fried, especially after working all day, it's a bit tiring. So this training guide, so I've just formulated this wonderful handout here for you. So this training is basically aimed at people at Good Start that need to learn a little bit more about the practice guide and why this has been implemented, what iStep is, and the planning cycle. So some people have a lot of knowledge about the planning cycle, but that's generally educators that have been group leaders. So we'll just go through, and if you have any questions, we can stop at any time. So what we're going to really be focusing on is how to incorporate iStep, which is in this practice guide, how to incorporate that into the planning cycle. Okay. And then there's other sessions that will be on how to incorporate iStep into critical reflections, like we were sort of talking about in our staff meeting earlier. Which I think, iStep is fantastic when you're critically reflecting, and I talk a little bit about that in the handout. But yeah, if you have any questions or any queries or you're not understanding, you need to clarify something, well, we can definitely look at that and examine that a bit further. So the purpose of this training is to ensure that educators understand how to implement the planning cycle effectively into their programming whilst adopting the iStep method into this cycle. So what is the planning cycle? The planning cycle explains the cyclic pattern that occurs when planning. It is a continuous pattern that occurs when an educator implements the following crucial elements into their program. So when we're incorporating a planning cycle, we've got to make sure that we're implementing ELF, the Early Years Learning Framework. We need to also make sure that we're monitoring the children and observing them, so that's part of the cycle. We also need to make sure we're monitoring what the children are actually interested in, and is the planning geared towards what the kids are interested in learning about, and are they having certain limitations, or are they exceeding so well in something that maybe we need to extend them a little bit more? Maybe they're really gifted and they really understand reading already, and we need to make sure that we're gearing the program to extend their knowledge. Another form of the cycle is critically reflecting on our practice. So what's working really well and maybe slightly what could be changed. And implementing plans and shaping the active learning environment. So scaffolding, supporting social relationships, as well as what our own ethos is, what our principles are. So that's all involved in this cycle. So in this handout on the page 24, there's this wheel, there's this cycle. So we need to incorporate all of those elements, and there's a huge amount of information that we really need to incorporate into that cycle, all of those points there. So when we look at this cycle, it's in a wheel and it's continuous, it's just ongoing, never ending. And if we can look at these 4 points, do you know where any of those would go in the cycle? So we've got reflect, we've got question, we've got act, and we've got plan. So up the top there, do you know where any of those would go?
I had a bit of a look at this before.
Yeah.
And the way I thought it would go was that you plan. That's your first one.
Yeah.
You act. You question.
Yeah.
And then you reflect.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. and the thing is, like, when you're doing your planning cycle, you're always going, some things, you might plan something
Yeah.
and you might actually reflect on it straight away because it might not work. Like, you might go, okay, well, I've planned this amazing experience, but I don't actually think it's going to work because of the group of children that I have on this particular day.
Yeah.
Or you might question what some of the children have learned, and that, okay, what I've actually planned, maybe I could do that later on in the year, or I could act on this and do this after I've done a reflection.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No,
like
it does.
It doesn't have to be in that sort of wheel formation, because you're going to go into all of these 4 different categories at different times.
Yeah.
You might be reflecting and then you might act. You might reflect and then question. You might question and then you might act. So I think the way that you've organised it is fantastic, and that makes a lot of sense. I think it's really important that we remember that it's just like a balance of implementing all of those
Yeah.
components. Because if you're just planning, then the wheels are going to fall down because you're not reflecting. If you're only acting and you're not actually writing anything on a plan, then are you actually properly documenting everything that you're supposed to be? So
Yeah.
it's really important to strike a balance in all of those 4 elements, and I guess that's why the Good Start really are promoting the planning cycle a lot. So awesome.
The way that you're saying it makes me realise now that reflection is a big part of it, isn't it? Like,
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
you can't leave that for one stage.
No.
I think just by what you were saying, you really need to do that with every step
Oh,
to
exactly.
reflect.
Definitely. And I think the more that you're involved in a room, the more you realise, okay, like, you're just constantly analysing, you're constantly reflecting on what's happening. At the end of the day, you might find yourself that you're driving home and you're saying, oh, that really worked really well today, or today was such a challenging day because I planned 6 different things, and I had flour. When we had the bakery the other day, we had flour. Children were measuring the flour, and the flour was going everywhere. Then we had home corner, then we had painting. I had to really reflect on my practice and go, okay, well, it was such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have been better if only that was the main concrete experience of the day, rather than having 20 things going at once. So it's really, you're so right. It's really crucial to what we do every day, and we are better practitioners if we are always reflecting on what we do. Yeah. Awesome. We'll just go to the next side. So we know that we have to have evidence and documentation. We know we need to monitor what the children are doing through our observations, and monitoring even when we're talking to who we're working with in our team. But this part here is incorporating iStep into the planning cycle. So iStep is really new, and it's been promoted in this practice guide, which has been implemented purely for that whole reason, for implementing iStep into our rooms and into our practice. Now, it's crucial that we implement it into our planning, and like when our supervisor Chantel was saying in the staff meeting today, what will happen is when we're going through accreditation and our ratings and assessment, people will be actually wanting to see it. So the department will be wanting to see how we are promoting iStep. The head office, area managers, there's going to be
a lot of
a domino effect down of this practice guide and iStep being in our documentation. And that's what the planning cycle is. It's our documentation. It's here, this is my portfolio of all of the things that I've done the whole year. These are my observations. this is my planning, these are the inquiries we've done, these are my critical reflections. So if there's a way that we can incorporate iStep into this, say this is the portfolio, then it just makes our life 10 times easier. The documentation is there and we're doing our job, and everyone else will be happy, it'll be happy days. So what is iStep? iStep is a practice model that has been recently formulated with its essential purpose to be a guide for educators to use when they're trying to solve a problem that they are currently facing in their room. It's also been formulated to help mould and shape their programs to bring about the best practice at all times. So iStep stands for the following components. I for interactions and relationships, S for space, T for time, E for experiences, rituals and routines, P for planning. So these are the things that we're doing every single day, whether you know it or not. It's never been put into that
category.
Yeah. But if you were to think right now, but just even today, you know, you've probably incorporated all of those 5 components throughout the day. You might have written the day book, so there's your planning. You might have written in your planning, E, the experiences and the routines that you've done throughout the day. Time, you might have been cleaning today and gone, oh my gosh, I've got to do this nappy and I've got to quickly do that, or someone's got medicine, or space. Something might have worked really well today with the way the room was set up, or the experience that was set up in a certain particular space.
Area and that,
can you think of anything today that you
goes
you
into
know?
one of these?
Yeah. Sometimes it helps to.
Interactions and relationships with their children.
Yeah.
I'm finding, because I'm new to the room, that I'm starting to form a relationship with the shyer kids, you know, the ones that are extroverted. So I'm finding that daily with that.
Yeah. Fantastic.
The rituals and routines also. Just the transactions within the room, being the younger kids and that. It's really important to have your routine with them. And like the room is run to the clock, like, and the kids know it. You sort of like with their transitions and that, they know what to do and that.
Yeah,
so,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Witnessing that, how has that sort of revolutionised your thinking? Like, what have you learnt from witnessing this firsthand?
Is repetition with the younger ones. The more you do it, the more, you know, everything falls in place, especially with the transitioning times. Just repetition. But just interactions as well.
Yes.
That's helped out a lot. And space, I think we did a room change because it just wasn't working with walking through the room. It was too cluttered in that. So we've changed the room, I think, twice now. So I think it's at a point where everything has its own space, but it's not cluttered.
And it's sort of easier
yeah,
to access, or the children are engaging in a different way.
Yeah, access and also engaging.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, we've hopefully found the best way the room works.
And that's really rewarding when you see all of that time, that effort has got into something, and that there is a reward from it. That
That's
there's
right.
actually, there's been the proof in the pudding, that you putting all of that time and energy into something. Now there's something fruitful that's come from
That's right.
all that reflection, and it's not easy, but it's always, trial and error, isn't it? And trying to work out what works best for you, for the children, for the room, for the parents, for what the director requires. There's a lot of that balancing that comes into it, trying to incorporate everyone's needs and wants.
That's right.
So these elements, these 5 components, are crucial to everything that we do in the workplace. As educators, we need to drive a program that caters for all of these elements. Additionally, did you know that you could use the I-STEP model to help you to plan and to also solve any issues that may arise throughout the working day? When solving a particular issue, you can use all 5 steps consecutively, or you can use all 5 depending on how applicable they are to the situation. Here is the following example of how to use I-STEP when solving issues. So you can use all 5 in any particular way. You might actually, if one particular issue arises, you might only use 1 step or 2, whatever is applicable to the situation. I've just written an example here. Sometimes I find that helps. I'll read it out because it can be, sometimes if you're reading in your mind, it just doesn't at all.
Yeah.
So this is the example of Monica. She's an educator in a pre-kindy room and has noticed that the children haven't been listening during mat time. Monica is trying to figure out what she could do to ensure that the children are paying attention during this crucial time of the day. So by incorporating I-STEP, I for interactions and relationships, something you could question is like, are the children experiencing a positive interaction whilst on the mat? During group time, Monica could ensure that her interactions are warm and friendly, using a gentle, calming tone and her body language being open and connected to the children that she's engaging with. So that could be something she could do. She might need to get down to their level and sit with them and let them crawl about on her, or maybe she wants them to all sit in a circle. Maybe she needs to get a pillow that they all sit on, or they have a little counter and they all have to sit on that blue counter, and you're not allowed to get off your blue counter until Miss Monica says so. So that's one thing she could do in terms of her interaction and relationship. Space. Where's the mat located? Are the children distracted by what's around them rather than listening to Monica? So in order to make mat time where children are focused and are listening to the learning that's occurring, the mat could be changed to a different location where the children aren't distracted by the physical environment. So that was just something that I came up with there. But
no, that's so true, and that was one of the room changes that we made. Was that
really?
Our mat time was a bit disruptive because they were too distracted of what we had around. So that's why we pushed all the activities and that away from our mat time and left our mat time bare. So they actually sit there and listen to what you're saying, whereas before they were getting up, taking things, and we had to no, it's time for mat time. So taking the distractions away. Yeah, and
sometimes having that little section, instead of having this huge open area, making it a little cubby they have to come into.
Right.
When we're in the cubby, we need to be really quiet and we don't make loud noises in the cubby or whatever it is. You can make it
anything really.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a perfect example. Actually, right there. Time, rituals, and routines. What are the time factors that could be contributing to distractibility? Is group time being held when children are really tired? Monica could change mat time to different parts of the day where children aren't hungry, tired, or restless. For obvious reasons, group time shouldn't be planned right at the end of the day or right before bedtime. Monica would also aim for group sessions to be a shorter time period, especially with it being pre-kindy. You know, if having children at that age group sitting for half an hour might be too long. So it's just, I guess, questioning all those types of things. And experiences. Are the experiences that she's doing during group time, are they stimulating? Perhaps the children aren't really paying attention due to lack of interest in the subject, and are the experiences age appropriate? So at the moment, in my room we're doing the human body, and I had a diagram of the skeleton and I was reading it, and then I was like, hang on a minute, they're not really they're not grasping this concept.
Yeah.
So then I just converted the game into Simon Says, but with body parts. I was like, put your hands on your pelvis, put your hands on your skull. What is the job of the skull? The skull is to protect our brain, and so I made it into a game. So reading from the book, there was fidgeting, but then when I changed it into something that was more more hands-on, more kinesthetic, more action, then they were more involved. So I guess in this situation, what is Monica doing and planning? Last I step, has the planned activity been something that the children have already learned? How could you plan for an experience during mat time that encourages the children to be listening? So could Monica analyse her planning and make some changes to her program? For instance, Monica could start an inquiry on caterpillars, seeing as the children have been really interested in the storybook, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. That was just something that I just fabricated, made up. So this draws us to the activity 2. So now that we've examined these steps, now we can, and how implementing this model helps educators with solving particular situations. How can we use this model in the planning cycle? So this activity here is we're going to create a mind map and draw diagrams, because I thought doing lots of writing would be a bit hard at this time of day.
Yeah.
So we can just draw some little fiddly notes and jot down what you would do when you're incorporating this into your planning cycle. So for me, I think of the wheel when I think of the planning cycle. So you might want to think of how you could actually incorporate it into like a planning format. You might just want to do like a section of in the planning of just like an I-step, like the ISTEP.
Yes.
You could put that little code somewhere every day, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, to solve a problem, or you might want to do it any way that you want. That's just an example.
Yeah.
So I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to write down some little notes or some pictures. You might want to write a little diagram. I'll just give you a couple of minutes. You can just do whatever you want, really, for your concept map or your mind map. Actually, in this practice guide, they don't have any concrete examples of how to put it into planning, which I find interesting. So yeah, I think that's something we could definitely brainstorm, how we're going to incorporate it. Yeah, they talk about the practice indicators, but something that I think needs to be addressed. Cool. You ready?
Sure. This is what you
No,
want
yeah.
or not?
No, what I did was I just did like, if I did my planning like that every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then at the bottom of the planning or program, I could put how I stepped today, and then like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I could do like an I step.
Put down the steps which you did use. Okay.
Like you could just put like the scenario or today Lachlan really asked to engage with superhero play today, and you could talk about how you I stepped that.
Okay.
That's what I did. What about?
Well, I sort of took it from what you said.
Yeah.
I would put a picture of all the steps so I can visually see it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So do you find visual?
Yeah, I'm more visual.
Yeah.
I'm a very visual person in learning.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would visually put it in my cupboard. So when I go to my cupboard and start my day off, I would think of my plan of what I need to do today, and I would tick off which step I'm going to use with the plans of
that's
today.
fantastic. Yeah.
So then at the end of the day, I've put just to do a reflection and write that down, which steps I used, which steps didn't work for me, or maybe it was the way I approached it. So that's where I've put down to brainstorm with the group leader. Yeah, that's great. That's really good. And it's fantastic that you've identified that because you're a visual learner, you need it somewhere to see it as a reminder, and just to help prompt you thinking about that throughout the day. That's right.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So far, do you have any questions, or is there anything you're confused about, or anything you're a bit, unsure?
No, you've covered it quite well.
So the next part is how we can incorporate iStep into the planning cycle in a number of useful ways. Analyse the suggestions below and what could you use in the planning cycle that will evidently help your planning. So I've just done up this diagram of the planning cycle. So for plan, these are some questions you could, like a group leader could ask themselves, or the assistants could question as well to sort of prompt that brainstorming, like you said, that's the way you feel like you're going to move forward with things in your room, by being able to question things and act on things. So in planning, is your planning incorporating relationships as a critical part of a child's learning? So remember, I was interactions and relationships. Yes. Are spaces, areas and resources set up appropriately? How long have you planned for certain experiences throughout the day? So that's T for time, E for experiences. What experiences have been planned? So that this is all about planning, this section. P has planning addressed the developmental needs of the children? Question. So with questioning, with interactions, question the interactions between children, how are they interacting and socialising with peers? Space. You can question, are the spaces working well in the room? Analyse what works well and what could be changed, like you identified before. It wasn't working well. You as a team identified that and you've changed it. So that's awesome. Time and rituals. How have the ritual times and routines been organised? Question experiences. Are the experiences that are planned significantly educational? And that's a really, really interesting thing to question sometimes. Are the things that I'm planning, questioning that and going, are they
educational to the children?
Are they? Yeah. Or am I just doing it because it's easy? So it's something to question, to ponder when you have time. Not before bed. Planning reflects the curriculum documents and is age appropriate. Children and parents have input into the program. That's something I like to question, because are the children's voice being heard? Are the parents being heard? Then act and reflect. So there's all the steps there. So I'll just let you read through that for a second.
No, you put it.
Anything shocking? Anything that's
No.
a conundrum? No? Oh, that's good.
Because this is what we do anyway.
It
Like,
really is.
yeah.
And that's what I've...
Well, should be doing.
Well, yeah, true.
Well, I feel most of us already
I
do
think
it anyway.
so. I
yeah.
think we do a bloody well good job. So things to remember. Like you just said, generally speaking, educators effectively address most of these components. Sometimes I think the thing that could be lacking potentially is the matter of how we're documenting it
Yeah.
and efficiently documenting it in the iStep model. One more important thing to remember is when incorporating iStep into the planning cycle, reflecting on practice is a really helpful tool. We've been talking a lot about reflection. Reflection seems to be coming up a lot. For instance, try and brainstorm with your group leader or assistant about how things are running in your room. Ask yourself and your team questions like, how can we use children's prior learning, interests and strengths in conjunction with the learning outcomes that the children should be achieving? Are we designing a program that sets up the physical environment for an appealing and exciting way? So all of that brainstorming, hopefully not when you're lying in bed at 2 a.m. trying to sleep. Hopefully at work, you can do it with someone, even in the lunchroom, even with Chantel if she ever has time, which I know she's very time poor. Yeah, I think it's just reflecting on our practice rather, but documenting. I think that's the only thing that we could probably, as a team could improve with.
I agree, yeah.
Last activity, this is called the 3 applications. So write down 3 things that you just learned and circle the idea that you plan to do first. So if you don't mind doing that for me, even if it's just 2. So
circle the idea that you would plan to do first. And is it to document?
do you mind sharing your 3 applications?
I've learned how to use the iStep more effectively, be more aware. Well, it's made me more aware to reflect on the practices and how I can use the iStep to extend activities or just things in general in the room and that. And just to be more aware. I'm more aware to do to actually brainstorm more, because even though I said it before, I don't feel that it happened enough.
Well, that's the first step. lots of eye stepping and stepping, but it's the first step, isn't it? Not being conscious and aware of something, and then you can now act on it and do. So yeah, that's great. I'm glad you've taken something out of it. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, or if there's something that you're unsure of still how to document it properly, we can keep working on it.
I think that's one thing I would come to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Is the documentation.
Well, that's the next step now, is how to put everything into practice.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.